The trade relationship between the United States, Canada, and the European Union has long been one of the most vital economic alliances globally. But what happens when these key partners clash over tariffs? Could this signal the beginning of the end for a partnership that has spanned decades? Let's explore the contentious story of the tariffs imposed during President Trump's administration and the fallout from the decision to raise steel and aluminum tariffs by 25%. This bold move sent shockwaves beyond the U.S., igniting fierce retaliation from both Canada and the EU, two countries that have long been critical trade allies. Could this be the start of a new economic reality? Or is it just another chapter in a complicated saga? One of the most controversial decisions during President Trump's time in office was the decision to raise tariffs on steel and aluminum imports by a staggering 25%. The tariffs targeted key trading partners, including Canada, Mexico, South Korea, and Brazil, countries that had previously been exempt from such measures. However, these tariffs were not limited to raw materials. They also included downstream products like fabricated steel, aluminum extrusions, and steel strands for pre-stressed concrete. Trump's justification for these tariffs centered on national security concerns. He argued that reducing U.S. reliance on foreign steel and aluminum was crucial for industries supporting national defense and infrastructure. These tariffs were imposed under Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act, which allows the government to restrict imports for national security reasons, claiming that domestic steel and aluminum production are vital for military readiness and economic stability. However, the reality of U.S. consumption complicates this picture. The U.S. imports about 23% of its steel and nearly 80% of its aluminum, with a significant portion coming from Canada. Canada, in particular, accounts for a substantial share of U.S. aluminum imports, which are critical for industries ranging from defense to automotive manufacturing. Despite this, U.S. aluminum production has sharply declined over the years, from 3.7 million metric tons in 2000 to just 670,000 metric tons in 2020. Canada quickly condemned the tariffs, calling the decision unjustified, especially since Canadian steel and aluminum exports are deeply embedded in U.S. industries such as defense, shipbuilding, and energy. Canada has been a vital supplier of materials critical to U.S. military operations, making this move particularly contentious. In retaliation, Canada imposed its own tariffs on a variety of U.S. goods, including bourbon whiskey, Harley-Davidson motorcycles, and denim jeans. This strategic move directly challenged U.S. economic interests, particularly those sectors heavily reliant on Canadian materials. For example, Canadian aluminum is crucial to U.S. defense manufacturing, automotive production, and energy infrastructure. The tariff increase could disrupt these industries, with far-reaching consequences for the broader U.S. economy. A prime example of this deep economic integration is the Alcoa Bacancourt aluminum smelter in Quebec, which supplies vast amounts of aluminum to U.S. industries. The U.S. relies on Canadian aluminum for everything from military equipment to vehicles, meaning these tariffs could disrupt not only those industries, but the entire economy. As Canada prepared its response, the European Union was also gearing up for its own. The EU's official stance on the U.S. tariffs was firm. They argued the tariffs were unlawful and economically counterproductive. European leaders criticized the move, stating that it would harm not just European industries but also U.S. consumers. The EU emphasized the deep interconnections between U.S. and European industries, warning that the tariffs could disrupt supply chains and cause more harm than good. Like Canada, the EU has a history of retaliating against U.S. tariffs. Back in 2018, the EU imposed tariffs on U.S. goods such as whiskey, motorcycles, and orange juice. Now, European leaders, including German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and French President Emmanuel Macron, have promised a unified and swift response to any new tariffs. The economic impact could be significant. The U.S. imports over 1 million tons of special steel from Germany each year, and the EU has warned that the tariffs could increase costs for U.S. consumers, potentially causing inflation and disrupting the global. The EU's economic interdependence with the U.S. is undeniable, and tariffs that harm European producers will inevitably affect American businesses that depend on these imports. These tariffs are not just a regional issue. In today's deeply interconnected global economy, supply chains span continents. Materials and products cross borders at every stage of production. Trump's tariffs could disrupt these intricate networks, affecting industries in Asia, Latin America, and beyond that rely on U.S. trade relations. The impact on the U.S. economy could also be significant. The EU and other trade partners have warned that these tariffs will likely lead to inflation, particularly in sectors that depend on imported steel and aluminum. U.S. consumers could face higher prices for everything from cars to construction materials, while manufacturers could see their costs rise, potentially harming job creation and industrial competitiveness. Furthermore, these tariffs could lead to shifts in global trade patterns, as countries in Asia, Latin America, and other regions may turn to Canada and the EU for materials and trade deals, undermining the U.S.'s traditional dominance. Some analysts believe that Trump's tariff strategy could be part of a larger geopolitical maneuver, using tariffs as leverage in discussions about defense spending and trade concessions. However, this approach, if not carefully managed, could backfire, further isolating the U.S. from its key allies and escalating tensions on the global stage. Despite the growing opposition from Canada, the EU, and other global allies, it seems unlikely that President Trump will back down. On February 10th, he signed a proclamation regarding steel imports in the Oval Office, solidifying his commitment to the 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum. This move highlights his determination to push forward with his policies, regardless of the backlash. Trump has always positioned himself as tough and willing to disrupt what he deems unfair trade practices. With this tariff decision, he is not just making a policy change, he is presenting himself as the protector of U.S. industry, even at the expense of long-term. So what does the future hold for U.S.-Canada-EU relation? Will this fierce push lead to a reshaping of global alliances? Or will diplomacy eventually restore these fractured relationships? The consequences of these actions could spill over into other areas of global diplomacy, especially with rising powers like China and Russia watching closely. Looking ahead, the U.S. could find itself increasingly isolated in the global economy as Canada and the EU seek new trade partnerships. This could lead to new alliances that marginalize the U.S. in the global market, with countries beginning to question whether the U.S. can still be trusted as a trade partner. As the world navigates these shifting alliances, new economic blocs might emerge that no longer rely on U.S. leadership. The question remains, will the U.S. continue down the path of economic isolation, or will diplomacy restore these crucial alliances? Only time will tell. What are your thoughts on this situation? Do you think these decisions are wise or misguided? Will the U.S. alienate its most important trade allies in the long run? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth analysis on global geopolitics, trade, and economic issues. The trade relationship between the United States, Canada, and the European Union has been one of the world's most significant economic alliances for decades. However, a recent clash over tariffs has raised serious questions about the future of this partnership. President Trump's decision to impose a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum imports has sent shockwaves through the global economy, sparking strong reactions from both Canada and the EU. This contentious move could mark the beginning of a new economic landscape. Or is it just another chapter in a long and complex trade story? One of the most controversial decisions of Trump's presidency was the imposition of a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum imports. These tariffs targeted key trade partners, including Canada, Mexico, South Korea, and Brazil, countries that had previously been exempt. In addition to raw materials, the tariffs also extended to downstream products like fabricated structural steel, aluminum extrusions, and steel strands used in pre-stressed concrete. Trump's justification for the tariffs revolves around national security concerns, arguing that reducing reliance on foreign steel and aluminum is vital for U.S. defense and infrastructure. However, this move is complicated by the reality that the United States imports a significant portion of its steel, about 23%, and aluminum, nearly 80%, with Canada being a major supplier, particularly in aluminum, which plays a crucial role in industries such as defense, automotive manufacturing, and energy infrastructure. U.S. aluminum production has sharply declined, from 3.7 million metric tons in 2000 to just 670,000 metric tons in 2024, making the reliance on imports even more pronounced. Canada wasted no time responding to the tariffs, condemning them as unjustified, particularly since Canadian steel and aluminum are integral to U.S. industries such as defense, shipbuilding, and energy. As retaliation, Canada imposed its own tariffs on U.S. goods, targeting products like bourbon whiskey, Harley-Davidson motorcycles, and denim jeans. This strategic move hits sectors of the U.S. economy that heavily rely on Canadian materials. For example, the Alcoa Bacon Core aluminum smelter in Quebec provides a significant portion of the aluminum used in U.S. defense manufacturing and automotive production. These tariffs could disrupt key industries and the broader U.S. economy. While Canada prepared its retaliation, the European Union, EU, was gearing up for its own response. The EU has firmly criticized the U.S. tariffs, calling them unlawful and economically counterproductive. European leaders, including German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and French President Emmanuel Macron, have warned that the tariffs will harm not only European industries, but also U.S. consumers. The EU has pointed to the deep interconnections between U.S. and European industries, emphasizing that these tariffs could disrupt supply chains and create more harm than good. The EU's economic relationship with the U.S. is undeniable. American imports over 1 million tons of special steel from Germany each year. The EU has warned that the tariffs could raise costs for U.S. consumers, leading to inflation and market disruptions. The economic interdependence between the U.S. and Europe means that any damage to European producers will ultimately affect American businesses that rely on these imports. These tariffs are not just a regional issue. They have global implications. The global economy today is deeply interconnected, with supply chains crossing continents at every stage of production. Trump's tariffs could disrupt these complex networks, affecting industries in Asia, Latin America, and beyond that rely on U.S. trade relations. The impact on the U.S. economy could also be significant. Tariffs are expected to lead to inflation, particularly in sectors that depend on imported steel and aluminum. U.S. consumers could face higher prices for everything from cars to construction materials, while manufacturers may see their costs rise, potentially harming job creation and industrial competitiveness. In the long term, these tariffs could lead to global trade realignments. Countries in Asia, Latin America, and other regions may turn to Canada and the EU for materials and trade deals, shifting global trade patterns and undermining the U.S.'s traditional dominance. Some analysts believe Trump's tariff strategy is part of a broader geopolitical maneuver, using tariffs as leverage in discussions about defense spending and trade concessions. However, this approach, if not carefully managed, could backfire, isolating the U.S. from its key allies and escalating tensions on the global stage. On February 10th, Trump signed a proclamation in the Oval Office reaffirming his commitment to the 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum, signaling his determination to press ahead with his policies despite mounting opposition. Known for his tough stance on trade, Trump has positioned himself as the protector of U.S. industry, even at the cost of long-term international relations. The question remains, will this aggressive push from the U.S. lead to a reshaping of global alliances, or can diplomacy find a way to heal these fractured relationships? The consequences of these tariff decisions could have far-reaching effects, spilling over into other areas of global diplomacy, especially with rising powers like China and Russia. Looking ahead, the U.S. might find itself increasingly isolated as Canada and the EU seek new trade partnerships. This could lead to the emergence of new economic blocs that marginalize the U.S. in the global market. Countries might begin to question whether the U.S. can still be trusted as a reliable trade partner, and this could shift the balance of power in the global economy. Will the U.S. continue down the path of economic isolation, or will diplomacy restore vital alliances? Only time will tell. What do you think? Are these tariff decisions wise or misguided? Will the U.S. alienate its most important trade allies in the long run? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth analysis on global geopolitics, trade, and economic issues.